Hey, how's it going everybody? In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my brand new Mezone B7 true wireless earbuds. They're a really cheap pair. I got them for under 800 pesos during Lazada's Black Friday Cyber Monday sale. That was a few days after the big 11/11 sale of Lazada. I didn't buy it during that time because I was thinking I don't really need one. For those of you who don't know, Lazada is one of the top Southeast Asian online retailers, the other being Shopee. They usually cost around maybe 1,000 pesos a pair. That's around $20 US more or less. At under 800, that's maybe, I don't know, $17 or so. So it's really cheap. There's really nothing noteworthy about it. We can start and end the video by saying, well, it's a mediocre piece. What do you expect, right? I mean, for that price, the fact that it works is shocking. Actually, I do have a pair of really good true wireless earbuds already. They're not like high-end. They're actually already considered budget. Would you believe it? But this is even more ultra budget. So the existing pair I have is from ZNT, which is kind of a known brand, whereas Mezone is like just one of those fly-by-night China brands that rebrands themselves every couple of years. So with my pair of ZNT Soundbass Plus ones, I actually reviewed it a year ago. I'll link to it in the description below. I've been very satisfied with it. The sound is excellent both on calls and for music and for like podcasts or stuff on YouTube. Barely any latency in videos. It's excellent. There's one thing though that's not great at. Like I said, this is very cheap. When I bought it at the time in third quarter 2019, it cost me around, it was around 2,600 pesos, something like that, more or less. That was like retail price. I got it a little cheaper than that because I bought it during a sale. It's pretty good, but there's one flaw. So this looks like a hearing aid when you put it in your ear. It's not like an AirPod which has stems where the microphone points to your mouth, or like those old school businessman style earbuds where the microphone points to your mouth. So in this case, when I'm outside, sometimes when I make calls, the other party sounds super clear to me, but I don't sound clear to them. They kind of don't hear me very well, muffled. I sound far away to them, especially nowadays. With the pandemic, I'm always wearing a mask outside, and that adds a layer of distance and covering over my mouth, and just wanted something better for phone calls. It cost me 2,500 or 600 already a year ago. I didn't want to spend that same amount. Anyway, I just got the cheapest I could see that's kind of shaped like an AirPods knockoff. There are some that, they're white and then they have the fake Apple logo brandings. I really don't want that. So it was really hard to find, actually, surprisingly. But I found one that's AirPods style. It has stems pointing towards your mouth, and it claims to have 4 microphones as opposed to the typical 1 or 2. And they're supposed to be better for phone calls. So I was just thinking, should I get one? Should I? I mean, I didn't want to really add to the whole electronic waste problem of the earth. All this cheap crap with batteries that cannot be replaced, they all go into the landfill in 3 years or 5 years. When I saw it was on sale, I just thought, why not, right? So it physically differs from my previous pair, and it actually differs from every other pair of wireless earbuds I've ever owned, or even in-ear earphones I've ever owned, because I prefer the inner ear design where there's a little kind of a tip, an ear tip that you stick inside your ear, and it actually seals off the outside. I've never owned a pair of active noise canceling earphones, but all of these that have the pointy end pointing towards the inside, that kind of physically blocks the outside noise, they actually have passive noise cancellation. Active noise cancellation is when there's a software, something electronically cancels out the outside noise. This is passive in the sense that it's just physically suppressing noise outside by blocking, like sealing your ear. But anyway, that's the type that I've always preferred in all my, whether wireless or wired earphones. This pair, this Mezone B7s, they're like the AirPod style, or before AirPods were invented, there were earphones, right? Like from the 90s and the 80s. That type that doesn't actually stick inside your ear. The type that just sits in your outer ear. So it's that type. I didn't really mind because, like I said, I really just bought them for phone calls. If I really wanted to listen to music on a long road trip with earphones, I have these, right? So I just bought the cheapest I could find of this shape, with a stem like the AirPods, and the cheapest that looked decent. The reviews were a mixed bag, but nobody said it was truly garbage. Everyone just, oh yeah, it's acceptable. It is acceptable, that's all I can say. Physically, how does it feel sitting outside your ear? It's weird, but I don't think it's anything with this model per se. It is just kind of an AirPods clone or a clone of those 90s style earphones. I just really don't prefer the kind that sits on your outer ear. It feels like unstable and kind of painful. I actually prefer the kind with ear tips. You know those ear tips, especially the nicer ones, they're very comfortable. Like you'd think it's weird, something sitting inside your ear, but the nicer ones, they're very flexible. They're pretty good. And these kinds, the hearing aid, it's shaped like a little bean. So the upper plastic part, it actually molds itself to the shape of your outer ear. It molds itself there, and then the ear tip goes inside. With this type, it doesn't really mold anything to this. It's just kind of sitting there, half outside, half inside. It's just weird. It's kind of painful to the plastic, like sitting there. So it's just my perception. It has nothing to do with this model per se. It's just this category, this type of earphone. That's just how it is. The interesting thing though, that since it doesn't have ear tips sitting there, obviously it cannot do the passive noise suppression, passive noise cancellation. You do hear more of the environmental noise outside. But something I've noticed is that with these inner ear type earphones, whether wired or wireless, if I'm eating and then I have them in my ear, like I can hear myself chewing really loudly. I had these on earlier while I was eating, listening to something, and one plus of something that's not an inner ear tip type earphone is that I don't hear myself chewing. So if you're someone who likes to listen to stuff while you're eating, but you don't want to have external speakers, you don't want to listen to it with your phone, well, I guess this is one very specific niche for you. Quality. What do you really expect out of a pair of sub 18 US dollars, sub 900, sub 1,000 pesos earphones? You know what? It doesn't even sound like hot garbage. That's how far like technology has come. But it isn't great. For a budget pair of earphones, these ZNT 2,500 peso ones, that's $50, $60. Obviously, it's not great either, but it's on the upper end of average. And it sounds very crisp. When I listen to voices talking on a podcast or music, it sounds very crisp. With this one, it sounds kind of muddled. Everything's just mixed together, but it doesn't sound tinny, which is a plus. With a lot of very cheap stuff, sometimes they sound tinny. But like I said, I didn't buy it to listen to music to. I bought it for phone calls. So I tried it on a WhatsApp call, and it was pretty garbled, both me speaking and when I was listening to my friend. So I thought it could be the network, right? Because WhatsApp makes calls over data or Wi-Fi. So I immediately called back my friend and used this pair, the ZNT earbuds. And it wasn't. It was very crisp. That was my first voice call test, which is what I precisely bought this for. So I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of disappointing. But then I had a couple more phone calls. They're regular phone calls over cellular, and they were all right. When I'm listening to someone, it actually sounds less crisp than my ZNT pair. I'm using the ZNT pair as a reference, not because it's such a great earphone, but that's the only other wireless earphone I have right now. And it's a pretty good stand-in for budget earphones, because this is practically disposable for this price. Right? Over cellular, when I'm listening to someone, it's less crisp. Sounds more muddled, but they hear me just fine. I sounded clear, so I was relieved. Maybe the WhatsApp call was just a fluke. And then I tried it once more on a Viber call. The other end also heard me just fine. That's good. And then I tried it on Skype. The other end also heard me just fine. That's good. But like I said, what I hear is a little less crisp than my previous budget model. When I say less crisp though, it doesn't mean it's not clear. The ZNT pair just sounds better. But like I said, since it's hearing aid style, they can't hear me that well, especially when I'm outside and wearing a mask. While the audio quality of the Mezone B7s are acceptable, there is a small lag, latency when you're watching a video on YouTube, streaming. If that's something that bothers you, well, then you should just spring for a better pair. But the latency isn't so bad, but there is a lag between the mouth moving and what you hear in your ears. For some people, that's very jarring. Okay, some noteworthy things about the hardware. Finish is a rubbery textured plastic. And there is a very, very minor scratch in the stem of one of them. But like I said, it's really cheap. It's even below budget level. This is a budget pair at this price range. So I didn't really care about the scratch. But if you're someone who demands physical perfection in your gadgets, you'd better be prepared to pay over 3,000 pesos at least. It's in the dental floss style case that AirPods popularized. You can pop it open one hand and obviously to take it out, it's better to use two hands. A charging indicator. When the case is being charged, it blinks red. When it stays steady red, that means it's fully charged. There is no low battery indicator for the case. There is a low battery indicator for the earphones depending on your Android phone model or your iOS phone model, the OS model, because you'll see it in the system settings of your Bluetooth peripherals, whether for iOS or Android. Physically, there is no low battery indicator for the earphones, and for the case, is one. There isn't one either. For my ZNT pair, my previous budget pair, there is a charging indicator on the case, and there are models which have low battery indicators in the case. Like this one has 4 LED lights, so once it hits 2 or 1, you know, like you have to charge the case again. Just letting you know, if this is important to you, then you should get a better pair. Look for that feature that tells you the battery level of the case. The case itself is very small. It doesn't really have a big battery capacity. It's like 360 mAh or something. This ZNT pair is 3000 mAh. That's 10 times more. So just be prepared that you'll have to charge it more often. The battery on the earbuds themselves, though, they're around the same level. I mean, all of them have the same level. Everything, like whether it's an expensive pair or a cheap pair, because you can't really jam a big battery in the earphones. What is the differentiator usually with these things is whether the case has wireless charging, whether the case is a big battery or not, whether the case is a battery status indicator or not. This is like super bare bones. It doesn't tell you the battery level of the case. It obviously does not have wireless charging for the case, and the case itself is a small battery. But it's not all bad. I mean, something this small is very, very pocketable. This one, it makes your skinny jeans bulge. Just something to keep in mind. And the good thing with this is that it has USB-C. You'd be surprised in 2020 that there are still very many peripherals that come out. New peripherals, new accessories that do not have USB-C, they are still sticking with micro USB, which is a hassle. Which is very good for this very cheap budget model that it has USB-C. My ZNT pair still used a micro USB when I bought it in 2019. It was a 2019 model. The earbuds operate with touch. It doesn't have a physical button that you have to press. So interesting thing about it is that to pause or play something, you have to double tap it, not single tap. I was like weirded out because my previous pair, this ZNT pair, and my pair before that, another pair before that, all operated in the single tap to pause, another tap to play protocol. This one is double tap. Then I realized, there is an advantage to that, even if it seems a bit weirder, because you often accidentally tap it, especially since it's not a physical button. You often accidentally tap it and then it pauses itself, or when you're getting a facial or a haircut, when someone's really near your ear, when it's accidentally touched and then paused. So with a double tap, that's more rare. You're less prone to accidentally pausing your music. It has the usual skip tracks or go back to the previous track function. Just check the manual for the exact sequence to press. Also has a sequence to press to call Google Assistant or Siri. Check the manual, but there is no volume control, which is like in 2020, I feel like even the cheap ones should have volume control for the touch thing, no matter how many presses. But even the more expensive ones, like the 4,000 peso ones, that's around $80 US. Not all models have volume control, which is disappointing. So in conclusion, would I recommend this? Not really. If you could afford a better pair, yeah, you should just get the better pair, because if you could afford a slightly better model by just paying a little bit more. For me, I bought it because like I already spent for this, which is a budget pair, but then buying another budget pair added together makes it $100, makes it like 5,000 pesos. I don't want to be dropping that amount. So I just got a cheap pair for phone calls, basically, like just something in my pocket. Like now that I'm going out more and always wearing a mask. For phone calls, it's acceptable. There was that one time where I sounded really garbled, but the other times I tested it sounded fine. For a cheap pair, it didn't really have that much trouble either with the Bluetooth distance. I stuck my phone in my bag. Some of the cheaper ones, they have a problem if there's physical obstructions in the way, like it's stuck in a bag. Even if it's not far away, if something is physically obstructing the source's Bluetooth signal, like it's in a bag or in a jeans pocket, it was surprising for a cheap pair. It didn't have reception problems with that. Sound quality is really nothing to write home about, but what do you expect for something that cost me under 800 pesos? That's under $17 or so. If you already have a good pair, but for some reason, like that pair isn't really good with phone calls like this one, because it wasn't designed really for making a lot of phone calls. Or if you, let's say, for example, you already have a very good pair of overhead, headphones, but you don't like going out with a big pair, but then when you're outside anyway, you're not really listening to music much, no matter how good the quality of this one. If it's really loud and noisy and you're not really concentrating on music when you're outside, right? then I guess you don't really need a good pair. Then I guess you could get it like as a spare, just something basically to make phone calls with. That's the only reason I'd get it. And it does come in a nice color, which I like. I don't like the AirPod clones that try too hard to look like AirPods, because then you're gonna look like some poor peasant who just is trying to pass off a knockoff as the real thing. I don't want that. Just coincidentally happens to have the AirPods form factor, but I'm not trying to pretend it's an AirPods. Dark green color is nice. The little rubbery finish thing, also nice. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it informative. Please check out the description to my review and my past earphones, although it's no longer actually in stock, but at least you know of a new brand now, ZNT, which is pretty acceptable, which is pretty good for the price. I'm sure this Mezone brand, I'm sure they probably have better ones. I just happen to get their cheapest one. I'm not knocking the brand. I'm just saying this model, it's their bottom of the barrel model. You know what to expect. It works though. Anyway, hope you found it informative. Please thumb it up if you did, and subscribe to be updated when I upload again. See you next video.